Okay, 7:01, start the meeting. Is there any public participation? Raise your hand or either through the Zoom or speak up. Hearing none. We're going to go to item number. Next item has to do with the Wakefield Public Safety Building, administrative actions. Lynn, I made you a co-host if you need to.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just get it up here. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. For those that may not know, Shane has left field, and I will be taking over for Shane, as will Adam Keene, who's on tonight. And we also have Tim Baker, who's going to be helping us behind the scenes as well. Shane wasn't able to give you his farewell speech at the February 24th meeting, so he wanted me to let everyone know that he really enjoyed working with all of you, and he's decided to take a different career path and working with a developer. So we're going to miss him, and bear with us until we can get up to speed. I think we're there, but if we forget something here or there, it's because we're trying to catch up frantically. So first on the agenda is the review of the February 10th, 2020 Permanent Building Committee meeting minutes. You should have received those in your packet. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes?
No, and I wasn't here, so I can't make a motion to accept them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion to accept the public safety meeting minutes as of February 10th, 2022.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any objection to any of the minutes to approval of the February 24th minute, February 10th minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved.
Okay, next on the agenda is the invoices for February. Consist of Leftfield's invoice number 16 in the amount of 10,000 and HKT's architects invoices 23 and 23.1, which is for their consultants, in the amounts of 12,163 and 560 respectively.
Chip, you want to, you have a motion? For the
Yep, so I move that we accept and pay for the owner project manager Left Field invoice number 16 for the sum of $10,000.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Janine?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
I
John?
move,
Yes.
I move that we pay HKT Architects invoice number 13-022023 dated 2/18/22 for the sum of $12,163.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Janine?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Did I miss anyone? I did not. It's unanimous.
I move that we approve HKT Architects invoice number 90220023.1 dated 2/18/22 for the sum of $560.
I will second that as well.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Janine,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Jason,
Yep.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
unanimous.
We have one more quick thing to talk about, and this will be really quick, and it's the furniture and equipment budget. Right now, we have given the approval to go ahead for the dispatch furniture. There is a plan out there that they're looking for approval from for HKT, so we're looking to get that right away so that it doesn't disrupt the delivery schedule. And we are also looking for the office furniture has been selected. Environmental at Work is looking for colors and finishes to be selected by HKT as well. I know that Adam has been in contact with Cybercom and Stanley Security, so we're working on those procurements as well. Adam, I don't know if you had anything more to add to that. Currently, we are just under our targeted budget, but we have identified a few different items that we don't have to purchase if we need that to bring it into line with the budget.
Lynn, this is Adam. I'll just add that we're looking next Thursday to have Cybercom finalized as well as Stanley Security, and we'll be asking this group for approval.
Any questions on the furniture and equipment budget review? Hearing none.
That's all I had for the Wakefield Public Safety, Joe.
Okay, just let everybody know.
Joe,
Yes.
have we, and I apologize if we did it in the last meeting, have we got approval for the working group to approve change orders up to the sum of $25,000?
Not yet, no.
Should we do
I
that?
haven't done that yet.
Should we do it now?
I think we should do it next week.
Can I suggest that you do it now,
Oh,
Joe?
okay.
Only because we may have a few things that come up quickly with mobilization starting next week.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I didn't think we needed to do it until then. Okay.
Janet, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to, I know we have to make the selections or help make the selections for the finishes. Joe, do we have an actual process in place to get those finishes, presented, the subcommittee? I know we talked about it briefly, but who's going to be involved? We've got a couple of the carpet and tile come in, and until we get those base things, we're not going to be able to pick furniture and that. So we need to sort of coordinate if we're reusing furniture, what color, and then of course with all the new finishes. So you're going to have a subgroup approve that?
Yes, we have a working group that will approve
The
that.
working group. Okay, so I'll work with Adam and Lynn to sort of set that up. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Chip, did you want to move a motion?
Yeah, so for people that haven't been through the process before, what we do for change orders as they come up on projects is if it's a small one and it needs immediate response or something like that, we in the past have given the working group permission to go ahead for change orders up to $25,000. Anything greater than $25,000 has to come in front of the entire board. However, even the ones that we do approve then also come to everyone for approval as well, and we just kind of report on them. That expedites the situation so that, if there's something in the field that has to happen and has to happen quickly, that it gets approved and we keep moving. To wait for the next meeting or to have a special meeting sometimes becomes difficult. So with that said, I make a motion that we allow the working group to approve change orders up to the sum of $25,000.
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of that and second that motion.
Just so everybody knows, the working group for the public safety building is myself, Chip, Jason, and Phil Runzi. Any questions? Any comments? No? Janine,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Jason,
Yep.
Mark,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
John,
yes,
Tom.
Yes.
Okay. And as Chip said, even if if a change is made in the working group, we'll immediately report it to the committee at the very next meeting. And seeing that we're meeting a lot, that's not going to be a long gap period, I don't think. All right. Anything else, Lynn?
That's it.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. All right. Item number 3 is the Wakefield Memorial High School. The first thing is administrative actions. Lynn?
First up is approval of the February 10th building committee meetings regarding the high school project.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the Wakefield Memorial High School meeting minutes dated February 10th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there any objections to the minutes being approved? Hearing none. The minutes are approved.
Next on the agenda is approval of the February invoices. We have a invoice from Left Field, invoice number 10 in the amount of $22,000, and an invoice from Smma in the amount of $71,500 for a total expenditure of $93,500.
So I move we pay OPM feasibility study Left Field invoice number 10 dated 2/28 for the sum of $22,000.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Janine?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
yes,
Tom?
Yes.
I move that we pay SMMA invoice number 56308 dated 2/11/22 for the sum of $71,500.
I will second that.
Any discussion? So just quickly, because the date of this is February 11th, this is for January time, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
SMMA is they're a little behind on the invoices, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Janine?
Yes.
Chip?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
yes,
Tom?
Yes.
Unanimous.
And just to give you a little perspective, we have committed 78% of the feasibility and schematic design budget, and we have expended 29% to date. You'll see this chart in the monthly report that you'll get early next week.
Any questions on the budget status report? Hearing none. Lynn?
I just wanted to give you a quick update. We did receive the PDP comments from MSBA on March 1st, late in the afternoon. We had a quick meeting with them on Wednesday, and we also met with the leadership group on Wednesday to review them as well. For the most part, for most of the spaces that were exceeded MSBA guidelines, MSBA has asked for some more backup. Basically how the spaces are utilized, staffed, and how they fit into the district's educational plan. And from this additional information, it'll help MSBA determine how much of the overage and square footage that they'll reimburse on, or what will be ineligible. Also, there were a few spaces that they basically came right out and said they will be ineligible for reimbursement, and that's the district office, WCAT, Black Box Theater, and the Governor Volpe archives. We can still have these spaces, but they will be 100% paid for by the town. The one issue that came up, and which we've talked about numerous times, is the field house. The size, MSBA has a policy that they will not participate in projects that have field houses greater than 18,000 square feet. Right now, our project based on enrollment is only eligible for 12,000. They asked for additional information from the project team to determine whether or not they would be able to go all the way up to the 18,000 square feet with participation for reimbursement. Otherwise, they would still accept the 18,000 with the remaining 6,000 between being 100% payable by the town. I did make a call to MSBA asking what the parameters would be should the town decide to fund the field house separately. I asked, could it be on the same site? Could it be attached? Could it run concurrently with the high school project? I was not able to get any concrete answers from them. They're running it up their chain of command to determine what their response to us will be. But we have asked that question so that we can still keep, keep it in play until we get a definitive answer from the board of directors at MSBA. We have another meeting coming up on March 8th to coordinate our responses, and our responses are due to MSBA on March 14th. I included in your meeting handouts the comments that we received. I don't know if anybody has any comments on those. We'll keep you up to date as we respond and hear back from MSBA.
Are there any questions or comments?
I had a question. What's is Black Box Theater, is that something different than an auditorium, or how's that work?
That's the recreation of the Black Box Theater that's at the high school right now.
So that would be in addition to a new auditorium?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's a question whether that's going to go forward. There has to be some discussions regarding that. With the people who contributed to the creation of that Black Box Theater, because it was created for the most by private donations.
Can I just ask, Lynn, in your experience with any other projects, have they, relating to the field house questions there, have any other recent projects gone through with these larger gyms that you know of? I just find it hard to believe that no towns have big field houses being built in the current environment.
Yeah, there are other towns with larger field houses, but most of those were designed prior to MSB instigating this policy. This policy that where they made it categorically ineligible just came about in less than 5 years ago. So they're trying to stand their ground on this. However, we're going to push as hard as we can to see what we can get from them or what they will allow.
Lynn,
Just for information purposes, when we did the Galvin, Lynn, you can explain that we did a separate work that was separated from the Galvin, we did the culvert work, right?
Yes, I reminded them that the culvert project, which they said they would not participate in and didn't want it part of the project, they did allow us to do that culvert work and run it concurrently with the project. We just had to separate all costs.
Chip, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying, what is the plan if we don't hear back from them in regards to the field house prior to needing to submit the responses?
I'm going to continue to try to get a response from them, but there's another more important deadline. I mean, because we can submit the responses to MSBA without having an answer from them. But what's going to be more important is that we need to know for the building design, whether or not
Right.
we're including a field house and what size it is, same with some of these other spaces. We need to get, be very definitive on that so that SMA knows what they're designing to.
Makes sense.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding the MSBA's comments? Okay,
Sorry, many pages. Next on the agenda, we wanted to set aside some time for the Wakefield Environmental Sustainability Committee to provide any project input that they might like to provide.
yeah, but I thought it was important because of our last meeting on the 10th. There was a discussion regarding chips and lead and which area to go with. I had discussions with the Wakefield, with some individuals on the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and I thought it was appropriate for our committees to get their input as to their preferences over leads and or chips. So
Does that MSBA, Joe, set a standard for what they're expecting?
Lynn,
Well, we can gain additional incentive points if we use either lead or USGBC. I know.
What did
there
we
was
do
a-
at the Galvin?
We
did
did,
lead.
yeah. But there's a minimum criteria as well from MSBA on sustainability.
And this is Martine. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help on that.
Thank you, Martine. Robin?
Yes, Joe.
Yeah, do you have any, had a chance to discuss this and some ideas? I know you've talked with Tom Galvin and myself regarding this issue. I just wanted to know your input.
Hi, everyone. So I should be clear, I'm actually not speaking on behalf of the committee. As a committee, we have not talked about having a position. And we haven't had a meeting since you guys talked about the difference between the two rating systems. So I would only be able to speak as a resident of Wakefield.
Go ahead.
So as I think many of you guys know, I am an architect that does public school projects. And so I have experience with LEED, and I know of chips and have done some research and had talked to Tom about it. I think that what's important to know is that following a checklist doesn't give you anything can give you a sustainable building. These are checklists as a way to measure different aspects of a sustainability level, but it is not ensuring that you meet the highest standards. It's just setting minimums and some prerequisites. So I think that the town can meet its goals sustainably using either accreditation system. They are set up differently with different focuses and emphasis on things, but you can learn from the other, and you can actually merge the two in some ways by taking things that aren't covered in one and using it as an innovation credit in the other. So as a committee, I do not have a suggestion for you on one or the other, but to look at both of them and using them as creating your priorities with input from the community on things to be considering.
Okay, thank you, Robin. When your committee next meet, I hope you would be able to bring this up and to make sure that everybody is on board on the same page regarding the sustainability issue, okay?
Mhm.
All right.
Lorraine or Helen, what are you guys planning on? What's your focus? Where are we going with this from a planning standpoint?
I would say our preference would be LEED. We have found that the review process is better. I don't know if Martine wants to agree or disagree. I mean, all of our projects have gone LEED just because of the resources, the availability of reviewers, the more uniform, consistent reviews that we've had. And it's more familiar in the industry. So even the contractors filling out the forms we found have been better at that. So, it's easier for us to get that documentation complete when it's a LEED project.
Yeah, I would say, Lorraine, really explained it clearly. And since your previous school has been LEED certified, through the MSBA process, it would make sense to consider LEED. You would keep some consistency and not create confusion in the community. The LEED certification, the base LEED certification is mandated by MSBA for that 2% that Lynn mentioned earlier on. Many of our projects go for silver certification. It's fairly attainable.
And what does that give us for a percentage?
2% additional.
Oh, just another, so 4% total?
Oh, no. The silver does not give you an additional percentage. Only the base certification gives you 2%. It's just that most of our projects, just by the level of sustainability that gets included in the project, a little bit to the level to what Robin was referring to, the good things to do, usually make silver on budget. But it does not give you more reimbursement from MSBA.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we got silver at the Galvin.
Yeah, I think we did. Any other questions or comments regarding the issue regarding the environmental sustainability, leads and chips?
I just want to say that I think we should go LEED. I don't know if that just seems to be more uniform, but on another note, is there any discussion for the town-wide to become a green community through the state? Has anybody looked into that? I don't know, either through our consultants or the town, just because there is money that could be seen, especially if we take the new high school off of fossil fuels for heat and stuff.
That is primarily one of the reasons I wanted to have that committee, this sustainability committee, get involved to see if there's any additional things that we can do. And that's where I'm hoping that, Robin will convey that. And I know Tom has conveyed it as well for their next meeting to discuss, and we'll have further, I'm sure, hopefully we'll get further input regarding that issue. Okay?
Joe?
All right.
Joe, can I ask a question to Mark?
Right ahead.
So Mark, just so you know, Wakefield is not yet a green community. While we did through zoning accept the stretch code, the town is still in the process of applying for the green communities. There's one more step to be in the process. So just
yeah,
let us know.
Yep, I just want to see what our status was, because I know that we're currently not. So
correct. So there's one more step that the town and Gas and Light and so forth are working on, and we do hope to submit very shortly. Going back a second, folks said that they thought that Galvin was silver with LEED. Your architect for that project, Pay's website, notes that it was done under the chip system. So I was not involved in any way, but based on their documentation, they note that it's a Massachusetts CHIPS 2009 verified leader status. So if anyone was involved, correct me if I'm wrong.
I
but
just
that is
went back and
published.
checked that, and you're correct about that.
It was chips.
Okay. Yeah. So the word silver does not apply to chips. That's a LEED term. So just to make sure folks understand that this would be a different rating system that you use, but not to say that you didn't use and learn from LEEDs as part of your chips, because there's a lot you can use and explore in terms of priorities.
Okay, is there any other question or comment regarding this issue? Thank you. All right, the next agenda item is the design alternative review for SMMA. Who needs to be co-host here?
That'll be Brian again.
That'd be me. And actually, Joe, we have another item. I don't know if it aligns with your agenda, which is a review of proposed building systems.
Yeah, there's a design alternative review, site design review, and MEP system review.
Okay, is there any objection to doing the MEP review first?
None whatsoever.
Great.
And we have slated site review for next week because of
Oh,
the
okay.
missed meeting last week. So,
All right.
okay, thank you. Do you want me to open it up, Brian? I think we'd actually ask Martine to give an overview, but just to frame this a little bit, on also the 10th of February, the focus group committed to exploring sustainability in MEP systems did meet. A review of the systems was done with that subgroup. And so this evening, we do have our engineers present to talk about what they've heard and also to relay to you where we seem to be heading with respect to MEP systems. So we have Lana Prokopets, our mechanical engineer, Nick Verzaka, our electrical engineer, and Anthony Gray, our plumbing and fire protection engineer, present this evening. And Martine, you already know, so I'm going to turn it over to Martine, our Director of Sustainability, to give an overview.
Yeah, my goal is to really give you a brief introduction in considering the context to which these decisions will be taken in terms of the systems relative to the energy code, the Massachusetts Energy Code. The project will be permitted at a time where the new energy code that's going to be taken place, be mandated in January 2023, is going to be more stringent than the current code, and including the new stretch code. So keeping that into context, and the fact that the state is moving towards electrification and heating electrification specifically, in ultra low energy buildings to reduce carbon reduction. And I know that Wakefield has a climate change goal with carbon reduction goals. So keeping that in context as we discuss these systems is going to be important. And I'll leave it to that. And Lana, go ahead and present those great systems.
Good evening, everybody. Just to continue on what Martine started. So to achieve the project objective of the building being net zero, the goal of this design for the mechanical systems is to have no fossil fuel used on the job. And as a result, the HVAC systems will be electrically powered. So the proposed system is all air system, so-called air source, and it is refrigerant driven. Air in this system is a source for heating and cooling for the building. The first slide is showing just a general representation of the system. On the right-hand side on the roof, you can see the RF air condensers. These condensers will be feeding energy to the rooftop unit on the left. And also it will provide energy to the components that are inside the building, so-called controller inside the building. And from the controller, the energy will be driven to the fan boxes, so-called fan coil units or the heat pumps. It's the same in this sense. So the media in this system is refrigerant, and it is transmitted through the building via network of the refrigerant piping. Next slide, please. One of the main components of this system is a direct outdoor air system. Just among many components that will be part in composition of this unit, I just want to start talking about what this unit does. These units provide ventilation to the building, fresh air. As I mentioned, the coils in these units will be heat pump style, DX expansion. Each unit will have at least one energy recovery wheel, and sometimes it could be two. The unit will have multi-step filtration system, And the motors that will be used in the unit will be high efficiency EC motors. And at the bottom of the page, you see how the system looks. On the roof, on the right-hand side, you can see composition of the system, depending on the requirements by the spaces. Next, please. This is a continuation of that air system that we talked about on the previous slides. On the left-hand side, you can see it's a drawing representing of the inside the building systems. This is what is actually installed above the ceiling. In the center of this slide, you can see ducted heat pump, and that is represented on the drawing on the left as a fan coil unit. Below the ducted heat pump, you can see the AV terminal. And that's a terminal that is on the left side of the drawing that you can see. The VV terminal is controlling the amount of ventilation air that comes to the building, and the heat pump is controlling the temperature in the space. On the right-hand side, it's just a visual of how the air-cooled condensers on the roof look. Next. Some other supporting spaces in the building could be provided with wall cassettes, spaces like electrical rooms or MDF rooms. The other spaces could be provided with just ceiling installed cassettes. They will be not ducted. And smaller spaces would be provided with electrical radiant panels or electrical baseboards. Next, please. So this system is called VRF Energy Recovery System overall. VRF stands for Variable Refrigerant Flow. That's what's moving inside the pipes. On the right-hand side is another diagram that shows what actually the energy recovery system is. You can see outdoor condenser on the left. Then you see the same branch controller that we talked about earlier. And then what's interesting here on this picture is that half of the building is shown in blue and the other half is in pink. And that says that this system can provide cooling when one side of the building needs cooling and another side is requiring heating. And it's all within one system. So it's one of the options that VRF system could provide to the building. And so, like anything else, any other system in the industry, this system has pros and it has also cons. So pros, this system is cost effective. This is the most cost effective system on the market. It is very energy efficient. This system could be supporting the third-party equipment, means DOS rooftop units. It could support simultaneous heating and cooling, as we see on this diagram. Each zone has an independent temperature control, and it's very flexible. You can pick any zone, you can separate any space and provide its own controls. Another pro is that this system is decentralized. It could be very close to the source of the load, and it could be used all year round on any schedule for any portion of the building. And the cons of the system are this system during winter time has a defrost cycle that it has to be controlled by different measures depending on the job and capacity of the system. It could involve some extensive refrigerant piping routing through the building. The life expectancy for the compressors is considered to be 15 years. It doesn't mean, however, that they will stop working. It just, in the industry, it says that it's practical to consider the life of the compressors 15 years, just in case if something happens and we need to do some calculations. So this is what we consider. And hot water generation requires many small units in supporting spaces. That sometimes it's just quantity of the units is large. And what else the system triggers is it's a size of the emergency electrical generator usually is larger than these conventional systems. It's because this system needs to be run during the event when the power is not consistent and the system is switched to emergency generator. And the next slide, please.
Before you get into geothermal line, I just have a quick question. Maybe this is for Chip and Wayne too, because I don't know how we usually do this, but with a forced air system over the winter, do we have a way to introduce humidity into the building through this system? Is that something we'd look at doing, Chip?
Usually we do not introduce, let me say this. We usually control humidity only during summertime. We do not control humidity in the winter time. That's how we design the systems for the heating season.
Could I go to Galvin? Chip, do you remember if we did anything with humidity at Galvin?
No, it's usually controlled through the HVAC and chillers and whatnot with air conditioning.
I'm thinking in the winter though, how dry that building's gonna be. One, you think about your house with a forced out air system, how dry your house gets in the winter. I don't know if the schools are the same, but that could make for some uncomfortable air quality.
I would say humidification, addition of humidification in the wintertime it's not going to happen. Could I ask a couple of questions on the, maybe I don't know if I found a turn here, but going back a couple of slides, you have any schools that we could possibly visit that are totally electric?
Yes.
And this stuff is pretty specific as far as the equipment. And my experience is that the people we put in charge of taking care of this equipment really don't have the training to maintain it and repair it. And it's complicated. This stuff's very complicated. I've been through this at a couple of schools.
Yes.
It's
So first,
complicated.
yes, it is. So let me respond to the first one. Yes, we do have schools that are all electric. We actually right now finishing a school in Lincoln that is all electric. And to respond to the next question, yes, these systems are not that complicated. It's just not familiar. So yes, the staff has to be trained and even certified by the manufacturer that will be chosen for the job. And there will be contract with to maintain the system if required on more complicated issues. But otherwise, it's not more complicated than anything else. It's a new generation of the system. This is where the industry is going. This is what I can tell.
All right, thank you.
So, so another system that could achieve a net zero objective is a geothermal system. And that system is using a in-ground source of energy. So another pro for this system is enabling to use centralized heating and cooling piping throughout the building. And so using the in-ground energy source is always renewable, it's always available. However, this system does with some cons. But before I go there, I would like to you to look at the system configuration. So on the right, you can see is a little exaggeration of how it's done, but the schematic diagram shows how this piping is looped inside the ground. Usually we drill for this particular project, the plan is for 500 feet deep wells. 2 pipes are inside one bore, and then they are grouped into the headers, and then they go back to the building. And the building usually has either a heat exchanger or a generator that separates the groundwater from the building water. And if you look on the left, at the bottom left corner of the screen, this is one of the heating and cooling generators that could be used when the geothermal system is installed. And green arrows show where the thermal water comes in. And blue is a generated cold water, and red is a generated hot water. So this system could provide to the building both chilled and hot water. And again, on the right, you can see some elements that will be installed inside the building. Again, VAV terminals to control ventilation. And then there are some options that would be used in a building. So one of the systems could be heat pumps, water source heat pumps. Another system could be chill beams. And so the cons for this system is usually it's a high installation upfront cost. There are a lot of there is a lot of drilling for the wells. This size of the school could involve maybe 300 wells to be drilled. Before, however, we decide how to proceed with the system, we have to do a few test wells, and sometimes test wells do not produce the desired results, so we have to move and try another one. Along with the test well, we have to do a flow test for each well, for each location, and the price could be very high for these test wells. It could start from 25,000, could go as high as 35,000 just to test it. Then what else is, maybe it's account for the space. Knowing that we have so many wells to drill, we need to have a large area to locate these wells. Usually they are planned on the 25-foot by 25-foot grid. This is the industry kind of standard safe distance, so the heat exchange is going freely within these wells. Also, the capacity of the wells depends on the geology variations, soil type, conductivity, and so every well produces kind of a little bit slightly different result. That's why we are doing more than one well. Another factor to consider when we drill wells is when the groundwater is close to the surface, what to do with this groundwater, how we store this water. Would we let this water to go back in ground? Eventually, we have to treat this water. It could be temporary lake, something that could hold this volume, because once you start drilling, the water comes in a very high rate. Another impact on geothermal system is a wetland area. So the town will have to make a decision how close they would allow the drilling to the wetlands. And then one of the important factors to consider here is about the capacity of the well. So the ideal system, geothermal system, is looking at the heat balance, meaning that the amount of heat that we remove during winter time, we want to return the same amount of heat to the ground. So the ground gets balance of energy. And very often, especially in our climate, we have unequal balance. And what it does to the well, it diminishes its production of the energy. And after a few years from when you have this asymmetry from year to year, some wells, there is a reduction of capacity. And then there is always some kind of unpredictability with operation of the well over the years. So as a result, these systems are usually designed with some extra wells drilled, but also we suggest to provide either a provision or installation of the redundant sources of cooling or heating. It could be chiller, could be cooling tower, could be boiler, just in case if the production of the well diminishes with time, you have a source to support the system in the building.
Could I throw something out? Having visited Belmont High School, which has something like 280, 500-foot wells under their sports field. Were you involved in that at all?
No.
Belmont High School?
No.
Are you recommending, or you're not recommending? I mean, it looks incredibly expensive, but obviously someone at Belmont decided, and I talked to their OPM over there, Skanska.
I mean, we offer you this. We offer you what's on the market. It's so net zero is a new direction. The equipment manufacturers are getting there. There are not too many systems available for the net zero, and we analyzed on prior projects. We did a lot of analysis, and we came to the conclusion that the most efficient for the project is air source, the source systems that I was talking about. However, this is on the table too, but there is a very high upfront cost, as I just discussed, because of the well drilling, testing, finding the space for such a big amount of wells. And there is some element of unpredictability. As I mentioned, they could diminish their energy production.
Just looking at the screen, there's two pros and 8 cons. I'm just,
the biggest, it's more, maybe only 2 pros, but one, this is like a huge pro here because it's an on-ground energy source. That's a very big pro, that actually you have a source of energy that is on ground and it's available. That's a main pro.
Lana, if I might add, for the purpose of MSBA during schematic design, we will have to compare 3 systems. And we usually compare the geothermal system as the 3 system to inform your committee and the town of the incremental cost and the paybacks of those 3 systems, so you can have an informed decision on the system that you would want to select. But I think what Lana wants, I think what Lana's showing here is transparency. We want to make sure you understand all of what's involved with geothermal, and it's obviously because we're dealing with drilling in the ground, it's a little more than the air source heat pump and other conventional systems. And it does require these test wells. And Belmont, for example, committed to pay these tens of thousands of dollars upfront to do test wells. And so that would be a decision that would need to be made soon if we would want to investigate and get better understanding if it's at all possible on your site, and what would the soil on your site, conductivity of the soil on your site would be, and that would inform us to do to better fine-tune the schematic design life cycle cost analysis.
Can I just ask a quick question? Have you guys, there were focus groups on this, right?
Yes.
And what came out of the focus groups as to a direction?
Helen, you can maybe help on that. I'm not sure there was an exact direction on a specific system. I think the preference from the focus group was all electric, no fossil fuel. That was the preference.
So for me, I would like you to come back with what was the discussion in the focus group, and then an analysis of the 3 that you would recommend, based on financials, based on all the costs, based on longevity, all those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now we're just talking in theory about how these wells work, but we're really looking for you guys to do the analysis and come up with objectives and choices.
Yep, and tonight's presentation is meant to kind of give you the overview. So again, no decision needs to be made this evening, but those are really good requests, Chip. So yes, those are important next steps.
Okay.
We still have 2 systems to get through and design alternatives to review.
Well, unfortunately, I see people's eyes glossing over. I think you guys are going way too deep into this. If you can.
Okay. We're gonna speed it up because Nick is gonna go fast.
I will skim through these electrical systems.
Yes.
Okay, I promise.
I love all the details.
All right.
Well, that's why it should be in a focus group or in some other group for the people that do love the details.
I will skim and you can ask me where to dig, okay? But for the electrical systems, there's not as much complication really with some of this as in the choices, but the building will have a new 480 volt electrical system, 40 volt, 277 volt system, a new generator system. The generator system is an area where there's often a discussion. We did get some feedback from the focus groups they did want us to look into natural gas. Normally in a building, we would do a diesel generator system because the code requires you to have an uninterruptible power source. and they don't consider natural gas to be uninterruptible unless it's acceptable by the code officials. But because there was some interest by some of the focus groups in that, we may explore that. That's one area of discussion. The other area of discussion in the generator systems is what to put on it. In general, we, as a minimum, usually, we put all the emergency lighting. We will put the systems necessary to freeze protect the building, freezers and coolers so food won't spoil, and communication systems. But that level of coverage doesn't create an occupiable building per se. It doesn't back up the ventilation systems, things like that. So a lot of our schools are asking us to maybe back up chunks of the spaces if you want to occupy portions of the building. As Lana alluded to, because we have an all-electric system, as you start adding load like that to a generator in an electric system, electric heat adds quite a bit of load to the generator system. So right now, our base system is about a 350 kW, which is kind of that minimal system, freeze protection, coolers, freezers, that kind of thing. But there's plenty of time to kind of discuss whether there's other parts of the occupiable building you'd like to back up.
Have we asked the town if the high school, and we can do this, if the high school is used as a safe haven at any given time?
I think we talked about, was it a shelter? And
a shelter in or whatever.
That's the first question about a generator system. And actually, and others on the call can correct me, but if we do classify as a shelter, certainly the power is an issue, but I believe some of the structural elements become an issue as well. So I don't think, my memory is this is not considered a shelter. And even if we were to add, like a classroom wing or the gymnasium and cafeteria on a generator, that doesn't, trigger it to be considered a shelter. But my memory is that this is not classified in any way as a shelter.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So in addition to that, we'll have new life safety systems, new voice evac, fire alarm system, and where a lot of another point of conversation will be is LED. The lighting is all. I don't think there's any buildings out there now that really are not using all LED. So that's not I think a surprise. The controls are very heavily driven by the codes, and as Martine suggested, we're looking at the proposed mass amendments to the energy code and trying to build those into the design now. But in general, you're going to have automatic lighting controls throughout the building, which I think it will be a point of conversation with the staff. There's not too much flexibility we have in that. In order to meet the code, we have to provide automatic, an occupancy sensor in classrooms, daylight sensors at the perimeters. We will certainly want to get the staff comfortable with what that system, how the system operates. But the lighting controls have really become very robust these days. So some other enhanced features are, we'll have some infrastructure for a PV ready building. There will be some discussion and need to discuss the extent of that. We've had some projects where you just have roof mounted PV, but then you might have battery storage, which adds a site element for where to bring conduit to a battery storage unit, which is usually located on site. So, but there'll be some discussion on that. Plug load controllers. These are automatic controls which shut off the plugs at night. And so again, it takes a little getting used to, in that we mark the receptacles that are on that control so that you're not plugging in critical systems that can be shut off, but it does provide a means of shutting off items that don't need to be on at night as well. Most of our schools these days do have a pretty extensive metering system. We can integrate that either on a panel by panel metering, or we could go to a branch level metering, which is a little bit more expensive, but the idea there is, the more information you have about how the building's operating, the better, and that's what the metering you do on the electrical side anyways. And then the next three items here, vehicle ready, electric vehicle readiness, enhanced digital controls, and kind of lower power density are not stretched. There are additional enhanced energy code requirements that you have to select from to meet the updated energy codes. They give you a menu of what to select from, and you have to pick some. So those are ones we're looking at. And then these are other just options in the building that some schools would like to have. A radio repeater system, not to be confused with the VDA for the fire alarm system, but if you want your cell phones to work, and then vape detection systems. But I can see, I think I'm being moved along, so I will happy to talk about anything more, but that's the electrical.
Just Nick, quick question.
Sure.
Another quick question. Make it quick.
Go quick.
The lighting controls, are they online controls as well? Can they be done online?
Absolutely, yeah. The questions are going to be: do you want cloud-based, access? Do you want them networked so you can get every room, or do you want them local, just so that each of the rooms are independent? So there's a whole, you could basically, whatever you can imagine, you can really do on these lighting controls these days.
Right, and we should be coordinating in similar processes that the Galvin has, so that our guys in facilities aren't trying to learn entirely new systems over the whole district.
Well, yeah, that's tough, just because it's a competitive bid, unless you want to go, proprietary to whatever you did at Galvin, which is an option, but
correct.
We can't do that. And I will just say, that the more sophisticated you get, sometimes that frustrates the staff as well. But these are all good conversations to have. Yeah.
Okay, Anthony, you're up, and I think you're also skimming.
All right, sure. I'll follow the path that Nick provided. And can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, yeah, just consistent with the theme of sustainability for the plumbing and fire protection systems. These systems you don't have the same latitude as mechanical in terms of optimizing for energy efficiency, because a lot of the requirements are code driven. But there are a few components on these systems where we do have that latitude, and domestic hot water is probably the first, which is, a significant energy use in a building. So here we would be using non-fossil fuel systems, electric hot water heating options, and depending on which direction the HVAC goes, we may be able to integrate with HVAC to recover some heat for preheating the domestic hot water system, which, that will present the highest efficiency that can be achieved most of the time, because you would be using waste heat from the HVAC system. If we wanted to go with a standalone domestic hot water heating system that doesn't integrate with HVAC, package heat pumps would be an option. And that would probably be your next level of efficiency. And then I have 3 tankless water heaters, which we are seeing a lot on projects that we are working on recently that are going all electric, because there's no storage. You don't have to deal with the standby loss with tankless hot water, and the upfront costs for tankless as opposed to heat pump systems or domestic hot water systems that integrate with HVAC are, the tankless option is lower. So sometimes, we end up going that direction, but just wanted to present all of it just for discussion. And the electric tanks as well, usually for the cooking operations, you like to have that storage on hand, and that helps. So, we usually would integrate an electric tank somewhere in the project, as we have done in the past. So pumping
comes into play as well with energy efficiency. And if a booster pump is needed based on the direction that the project goes with a renovation of the existing or new, you know, depending on the layout, there may be a requirement for water booster pumps. And if so, you know, we would just choose one with variable frequency drives to enhance the efficiency of the water pumping system. So that's that highlight there. Sorry, if you could go. All right, I'll move on. But water metering was one thing that I just wanted to mention. You know, that's a sustainable feature that we have been utilizing on many of our projects, whole building water metering, and then advanced water metering for different water usage. So that's something that we would incorporate on a project like this. And then indoor water use reduction by choosing low flow fixtures, such as these faucets that you see with either solar with battery backup for operating the sensor-based faucets. There are also eco power faucets that you can use that don't use electricity at all. But those are options. High efficiency water closets using as low as, you know, just about 1 gallon per flush. And then we have the pint urinals that we are using a lot that really help us achieve the indoor water use reduction goals on the project. Next slide. And then the emergency equipment, again, there's not as much latitude here in terms of optimizing for sustainability, but these are features that you would see with eye wash and emergency showers and your tech and science lab spaces. And then, of course, based on the layout of the renovation or the new building, a fire pump may be needed, and we just want to, you know, include that in all of the discussions so that it's not a surprise down the line. Yeah, that's pretty much all that I have. So I zoomed. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Any questions on plumbing or for electrical as well?
Have we done any flow tests yet to understand what our water capability is on the street and what we're gonna have to do? Or
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Yep.
When is that scheduled to be done so that you can actually design to have knowledge to what you're designing to?
Yeah, I think we can typically towards the beginning of schematic design.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Are people ready to shift gears and reset your brains to look at the alternatives development? And thanks to all the engineers for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
I'm here to unglaze your eyes.
Oh.
Spoken like a true architect.
Now,
sorry,
now.
sorry, engineering team.
So who has seen these at this point? Who's vetted these before us seeing them? Has the leadership team seen any of this?
No.
No. No, there was a stripped down version shown in the site focus group meeting today, but really just to talk about site issues, not to look at options. So what I wanted to do, Chip and committee, is walk you through our progress, and we're sort of chomping at the bit over the last couple of weeks to show you some progress. What we're looking for tonight is really just some feedback on initial steps, if you will. I had a few slides here to kind of prep you for kind of building up to be seeing the diagrams of a building at this stage. So we're taking the PDP diagrams of a building footprint, and now we're taking them into a plan diagram. We're not talking about full plans per se with every piece of the program represented and all the stairs and elevators and whatnot. These are still, and especially tonight at the first sort of time out of the gate, showing you these. it's really big strokes, brush strokes that we want to show you and get some initial feedback. So our program is at 275,900 gross square feet. And this diagram shows you all of the component pieces to scale. And our task now is to organize this into a beautiful building that's going to support the educational program and be a good value for the cost. How do we do that? The first thing typically is to start to break the core curriculum elements into pods. We know that pod-based planning was one of the high-ranking priorities from the visioning. We clearly recall all of the work and good feedback and good programming sessions that we had to arrive at some concepts for how this will go together. And this is just to give you a sense of the kind of patterns that you will see in the bigger building diagrams. They include sort of a shorthand of all of this. And in the next stage, you'll see something more like this, which is fleshing out the building, which has the core sort of vocational technical spaces at the center of the pod, animating, activating with hands-on work, exciting things in the middle that students are exposed to on a daily basis. So we want to make it transparent. We want it to connect between levels. We want students to see the possibility of different disciplines and gaining skills and actually learning by doing with project-based learning. The perimeter is ringed with more traditional general classrooms, but the whole thing is flexible, meaning there are movable partitions, the furniture is all flexible, and so that different settings can be envisioned and the building can evolve along with the employment of a 21st and 22nd century learning curriculum. I wanted to touch on the large gym because we know that our site is very constrained. We like to look back at Swampscott High School, which had a 30,000 square foot field house. We may not be going this route. This was, I believe, the last school, and this building opened 15 years ago. This, I believe, was the last time the MSBA participated in a gym of this size. I'm looking at it and with you to sort of preview some of the planning challenges of such a large volume. So at Swampscott, the gym was located at level 2. There are 30,000 square feet of space below that gym. About a third of it was filled in with a senior center, and we don't have a senior center in our project. So there's going to be a discussion in terms of, you know, how do we make all of this program fit in a well-designed building that doesn't leave any spaces with bad adjacencies, meaning music rooms with basketballs bouncing overhead, et cetera. So there are definitely spaces that are well suited to go below a gym. There are also several issues of, you know, the access. You can see on the left-hand side, the large gym volume. So a 35-foot space sitting on top of a 15-foot base level, you've got a 50-foot wall. So one way that was sort of dealt with architecturally was the dining commons slipped underneath, but then the front of it allowed to be a sort of a glass wrapper with a colonnade that scaled down the building at the front of the building and made it transparent. It gets a lot of light deep into the space, as you can see in the middle picture. And at the bottom right, there's an elegant, stair that brings you up to that space. Now, for folks who can't use the stair, it means we've got to think clearly about, where we're putting elevators and the function of those, so that we have a well-performing space for everyone, students, staff, visitors. As you can see, that treatment in the front works there, but there could be two sides of that volume that will have to look design-wise in terms of kind of scaling it and making it appropriate for whichever way it's facing. So what we came to in the PDP round was a 3B new building located on Beasley Oval. And we were asked to study program clusters within that footprint for this round, and that's what I'm doing tonight. So we have a series of 4 versions of a 3B scheme. These are basic, sort of cluster diagrams dealing with the wings of the building. So on the upper left, putting community space up front, gym, auditorium, easily found right through the front door, off of the dining commons, and then the academics are facing east, which is the quieter side, facing the wetland and woods. Down on the left, more is an inversion. So pushing the academics to face Farm Street. This creates a well-scaled front of the building. It is more active. So, you could ask the question, is that distracting for classrooms to be facing that side? Also, I heard in the previous round, a strong desire to have the gym directly adjacent to the Beasley Oval. And so, although we're talking only about 200-foot shift left, right, up, down, it could be significant depending on the form. And then the 2 versions on the right take a different approach. So they cluster humanities and STEM wings on either side of the dining commons. In every version, you're entering from the top, so from the west. You're going through the dining commons to get to the community spaces. So that's a common thread through all of these. The question then is, can we create the wings for the academics that have more light and air on basically 3 sides? So we have a better ability to get sunlight and control that sort of environment. If we flip the diagram, those could also be alternately on the north side. So moving into what these look like in a site plan version. So this is the option 1, STEM and humanities facing the east and the community spaces up front again. We do have in our back pocket a second option for the roadway realignment and intersection, which is a roundabout. I won't get into that tonight. Next week will be a more site-focused presentation, talking about the grading of the site, all of the access points, and how we're going to make the building sort of blend in with the campus and make it a unified approach. So the first option again is academics facing east, central dining commons. Again, on the left, we're seeing what is below the field house, so lockers, custodial storage, and maybe part of admin. So again, this is not a final proposition for what spaces are going here. These are test fits. We're interested though in looking at how this stacks, and in these first 2 options, the academics, we're not able to really pry them away from those large volumes of the auditorium and the field house. And so I would say, these are a little bit challenged in terms of the academic environment relative to the mass of the building. So that's generally how this option stacks. As we move forward, we have some 3-dimensional views of that version. The photo on the image on the left is going to be the image looking over Farm Street across the new Beasley Oval that's on the footprint of the existing high school and the school toward the back of the site. And the image on the right is the reverse view from up on Hemlock. So this is the pattern we're going to see for each of these. Again, this option has academics out front. It has the gym on the southeast corner. Auditorium is somewhat embedded. All of these options, again, have the large community spaces accessed through the dining commons. So you're coming through the front door. There's a high degree of control of each of the wings when we're talking about after hours. So people are not able to wander through the building. In each of these, we also are trying to drive the dining commons all the way through the building and to have an outdoor common space for outdoor learning, for gatherings and connections to nature. On 3 of these options, the service and loading are on the south end of the building, which is under the gym. On one of them, it's on the north. Our site team is thinking that the preference on that particular issue is on the north side, but I think we'll have to defer that discussion maybe until next week when we have a bit more supporting info on what happens there. Second level in this option, again, access to the field house is on this level and to the upper portion of the auditorium. Media Center animates this option out at the front. And so it also links between the 2 academic wings and serves as, sort of a bridge and is very central, overlooks the dining commons below. Level 3 stacks, again, with 2 pods connected by a double loaded section in the middle. Again, the challenge here with the constraint of the site is being able to pry those academic wings away from those large volumes so we have access to light and views and not have landlocked rooms in any of these, or to minimize them, I should say. Option 3 puts the academics facing south. Looking at the plan diagram, again, dining commons is the central hub. It connects all of the pieces. When you enter, you go up the stair to the gym on the left, you go straight through to the auditorium. There's an outdoor commons, again, giving you a visual all the way through the building and having light. These 2 options have, I would say, the better orientation or disposition might be a better word for the 2 academic wings. They're adjacent one another. Again, as you go up, the media center is sort of the hinge between them. It's a very central piece to the academic side of the building. And then you have the special activities, the arts wing and athletics and phys ed on the other side of the common space. So there's sort of a bridge link across those. Level 3 stacks the academics up another level. Here we see the massing of that. So then as you enter, which is coming from the right-hand side off of Hemlock, you have more of I think, a well-scaled set of elevations of the academics. The very glassy part, again, is that common space driving through the center. And on the left is the gym. You still have direct adjacency to the field, but it is set back a bit. And I think better able to be kind of integrated into the architecture and not so sort of front and center as the big element you see when you enter the site. Option 4, this is basically the mirror image. So pushing academics to the north side of the building. Again, dining commons is the central feature, the hub among all of it. Auditorium is toward the back of the building, but accessed again straight through the commons. We have admin flanking the entry on this side, so we have services right up front. Some of the admin and guidance could be distributed more through the building. Again, this is a very initial diagram of how the plan big pieces fit together. We're not showing all the corridors. We're not showing the doors and windows. This is to get your feedback on what feels better in terms of these big program pieces being placed on the site. So again, media is a central feature. This piece has an upper common space that's accessed by that stair. Obviously, We need elevator access. So if the public is coming into events, they're coming up the stairs here. Going up to level 3, again, an L-shaped wing for academics, 2 pods that are hinged together. And then the 3-dimensional aspect of this, again, you can see the difference in terms of the feel of the building with the gym right out front and sort of the first thing you see. But again, these are mirror image schemes, and the component parts within are virtually the same in these two. So going back to the bracket analogy, we're not looking for the ultimate winner in terms of the preferred alternative to go to schematic design. But if you feel like you want to fill out your bracket this evening, we would gladly hear folks' input on which of the 4 options you think is most viable going forward. I have more on the addition renovation option, which is really just advancing the scheme that you've seen in terms of the footprint and you saw in the interview. I wonder if there's a sense, Joe, whether folks want to go back to the 3B first, or should I continue through and show you the single 2A development for Ad Reno?
Yeah, there were some people who raised their hands. So why don't we start with the alternate designs for 3B? Janine?
All right. Yeah, when we had talked about using this this option 3B, we talked a lot about making sure we still focused or incorporated the solar orientation. So option 3 really jumped out at me as being the best solar orientation for, I think primarily what we're doing here is for the classrooms. So I thought this one really, and I think it flows well, and I think it's a good orientation. I really lean towards option 3 at this moment in time.
Thanks, Jean. Liz Martin?
Just a question on process, not necessarily a question on options. So you're looking, SMMA is looking for feedback as you move forward to SDs. And so at what point understood that there's interest, there's constituencies that are involved in YCAT and the black box theater, but there's also a need for balance in terms of the overages that the MSBA is asking for further clarifications on that take us above the formula that's been set by the state for the square footage for our school. So I'm just looking for, when do we have to get down to brass tacks about the strategy and the square footages and sort of the pecking order of what the priority list is in order to, accommodate program given the square footage guidelines.
Lynn or Helen, can you answer that?
Yeah, I think at this moment, Liz, because we are still working, it's such a high level of fitting the pieces, it's a little less critical. So we will respond to the MSBA comments. We can continue to develop the design. Of course, the field house is a big piece that does have a bigger ripple effect of how we put these volumes together. I assume in the next few weeks that will get sorted out as Lynn gets more clarification from the MSBA. But yeah, we're kind of still in it. I think we do hope to, by the end of this portion of the study, have made some determinations about which square footages the town wants to continue to cover over and above the MSBA guidelines.
And maybe if I can be like super specific, we would need to know exactly which square footage is in versus out to begin SD.
Thank you.
And just for the purpose of everybody, what, Lorraine, what is that date? Is that May?
April 27th.
Thank you.
Is the start date.
All right.
And
John?
I'll just let everyone know that the diagrams that you see here are integrating the 30,000 square foot gym,
right,
the theater, WCAT, everything that has been included in the space summary thus far. So if any changes are made, we will adjust the diagrams to suit. We are submitting some documents at the end of next week for pricing, but those are really going to be based on the space summary, not necessarily a particular design of a building. So that's not really an obstacle. We just want to sort of try to focus our efforts in refining a diagram if that can be done, or eliminate diagrams if that can be done. So it's really just part of a process of honing, I would say, that we'd like to have some feedback, whether you're comfortable filling out the bracket tonight or take it home and study, and we can revisit on a weekly basis. I believe that we have weekly meetings set up over the next month or so.
There are no, just one final question. There, with all of these options, which cover all of the necessary square footages, there's no obstacle in terms of site development that you struggle with sort of siting the building at its current square footage and give it the appropriate access?
It's a bit loaded question. Struggle. It's a very constrained site. And our
would
site
it be
team,
good to, as we look at these
Sorry.
options, is it possible, and not for tonight, maybe for like a follow-up, if there is in any of these layouts a creation of a site constraint, can we get some feedback on that in a future meeting or a memo or whatever? Doesn't have to be tonight.
sure, our meeting next week is meant to be focused more on site.
Okay.
And we will definitely tackle some of those big issues. For example, getting the building to sit and the field to sit at an adjacent level on the site, we think is important. But that presents a big challenge in terms of the cut and fill proportion on the site. And if you're trying to raise the building up, you need cut to fill that in. And we won't be doing the project in a sequence that really allows us to do that. So there are some things that our site team and we in architecture are working through that will have a more informed presentation for you next week on some of that. And also the servicing, I had mentioned, this is the one of the four that puts the service on the north side. So basically trucking would be coming in some manner over here to a loading dock. And that's a bit more difficult challenge on the side that has a steep slope. Not that it cannot be done, but it just looks like a little bit more of a challenge on the south side.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Jonathan?
Thank you. I'm going to maybe just share my thoughts on my bracket. I don't think it's too early to start thinking about that, but I agree with Janine. I will say I do like options 3 and 4 better because of the solar orientation and because you've been able to kind of split the academic wings up or spread them apart a little bit so that there's more exposure to light. I would say if I had to choose between the two of them, I think that I would prefer option 3, only because it just feels like it brings the more kind of visually interesting parts of the school to the places that are more visible. I think it looks better on the site to have sort of the academic wings kind of adjacent to Hemlock and where folks are driving, and it just feels like a more welcoming facade to the building than the gym. But just my 2 cents in terms of, as I look at these, sort of which one kind of jumps out as the one that seems most appealing to me.
Thank you, Chip.
So I have a couple comments. One is, I think in any of the schemes, if the gym is to the forefront or towards Beasley, it's too massive, right? It's too big a wall, and we should walk into it some way off of the front road and have it tucked in the back. Whether it's north or south, it doesn't matter to me. It's just from the standpoint of where it comes in. Also, I'm wondering if we can't bury some of that height into the hill, right? We tend to worry about standing it alone, and I'm wondering if we can take two sides and bury it into that hill along Hemlock. Maybe even creating an exit that goes up towards the Landegren at a higher level, halfway up the hill or something. So that's just a thought, if you guys had thought about that.
We
And
have actually, it's a good thought, Chip.
yeah, so that, I mean, again, these are the general, right, big picture thoughts. And then what was your comment about the Beasley Field being at the same level as the high school?
Oh, right.
Is that a goal?
It is, in potentially even being slightly below the entry of the building, because, you know, we cut a section through this, and we're not quite there yet with that. But, you know, if you're going to terrace down from Farm Street down to the front door, you're talking about dropping about 12 feet.
So
right?
I guess my question is why is that important?
Well,
I
it's
almost
so
think it
the-
would be more important to have Beasley 12 feet higher. And then the mass of the entire high school would be lower, and you could do parking and stuff at a lower level and
Yeah.
do some interesting staircases or whatever. I guess I don't understand the desire for, maybe the desire so that it's all on one level, but that also I think might be a discussion next week, because that's a ton of cut, right? To
It
take
is.
that
It's a lot.
whole area that the high school is currently on
Mhm.
and lower it to be at where Beasley is currently. That's a huge expense.
Right, and this does need more study. What we don't want to have is the building feeling like it's down in a pit. And with the field in such close proximity to the front door, that, you know, could potentially be an issue. You walk out the front door and you see sort of a berm going up to the field. That might not feel so good. But we'll study it more with sections and try to get a view through here. If we drop the field down, yes, it creates a big challenge in terms of export of material.
And maybe it just doesn't have to go all the way down.
Right, and also in plan, if we were able to push the field closer to Farm Street, then we could potentially deal with the terracing through some parking that's between the field and the building.
I like that idea, because the two things that I don't think any of these plans have is enough parking close to the school for the use of the auditorium or the field house on a non-school event.
Yeah, we hear you. We heard that
you know.
before as well. We just haven't been able to integrate that into the diagramming yet, but you'll see something next week that tries to deal with that.
Good, but I do think the mass of the gym should be in the back, whether it's south or, I understand and if it can be buried into the hill, then that even helps with the massing a little bit as well.
Mm.
Just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Other than that, I like the pods, I like the wings. I like the idea of the central eating area and whatnot. Have you thought about instead of services on underneath the gym, to swap it and put services above the gym? Or those spaces, locker rooms, whatnot above it? Does that create problems because of plumbing and everything else?
Well, it's just it's a very tall space. The gym itself is about 35 feet tall.
Yeah.
And so it just creates, it would be on a level that's above the rest of the building.
Okay. And if we do go back to an 18,000 square foot building, which I unfortunately think we will probably end up there, but has any thought been given to a raised track or walking area at a higher level around it?
That is another, I would say, sensitive topic with MSBA. They tend to frown on the walking track as sort of a spatial expenditure, if you will. I don't know if Lynn or
So we have that in a couple of our schools. We have that at our Hudson High School. It increases the size of the gym because you want your court space to be that 18,000 square feet. So it does increase it, but I think, Lynn, maybe we keep that in our back pocket as part of the conversation over the field house. It's not a running track. It's really, as you said, Chip, a walking track, but we do have that in some of our buildings that we did prior to MSBA changing the rules.
Some of the sweeps on the end sometimes go out and make part of the corridors and whatnot to keep your gym within the 18,000 square feet.
Yep.
MSBA doesn't really like tracks, do they?
I think it was
They're all
unfair.
about education.
I think it was unfair that the one slide you showed was of the field house was one with a track. That just that's just, Brian, that was just unfair and a cheap low blow.
Yeah, really whetted your appetite, didn't it?
trying to be provocative.
Are there any other questions, comments regarding the alternate for option 3B that were shown? Okay, Brian, you want to do the reno?
Sure. So start off with the PDP diagram, which basically shows you some areas, the hatched areas, which would be demolished. The new pieces of building in orange being inserted in where the courtyard currently is, and then the light orange are areas to be renovated, including the gym and part of the academic side. So taking that forward, here is an image of a closer look at how the inner portion of the building works, the plans. And we're trying to basically achieve some more of the poetry, I would say, of the interview scheme. With, again, the dining commons piece being a wedge that comes through the middle of the building in place of the courtyard that's outdoors now. An auditorium space slides in next to it. We would maintain the theater, the existing media center, obviously the gym, and then the new humanities, STEM, and arts and music wings. So basically 3 clusters. We are constrained with 2 of the 3, so there's a little bit of a split. Here's a plan of the existing building. Again, the areas in red are demolished, about 143,000 square feet in the total building. The green areas get renovated, that's 118,000. So new construction is about 138,000. So as we look more closely with laying this out in terms of, now this is second level entering off of Farm Street on the top. We're very close to the projection that we had and we in the space summary and we gave for the pricing. So there's a good degree of comfort level in terms of delivering an ad reno that is in alignment with the costs that were given at PDP. You can see through this plan, which has this large sort of hole in the middle, which has a learning stair and a stair to get down through the center of the space. And there's a ring of circulation. So there's an ability to look down into a dining commons and to have linkage to all of the pod elements that are around the perimeter. Admin is in generally a similar place that is now. It actually takes over the footprint of where the music suite is currently. And the main entry is through directly into the common space. You can see the upper portion of the auditorium on the middle left, next to the large opening in the floor. And that drives down to the lower level, which is sort of the bottom of the theater, the stage level. Looking back again at the diagram, we looked carefully at trying to increase the amount of existing building that we could renovate. The two bars that run through and define the courtyard are something like 10.5 feet floor to floor, not conducive to a modern school. Even the wing on the corner on the northeast is only 12 feet and a few inches floor to floor. Again, hugely challenging to try to get new services to run in ceilings. You might have low ceiling height. We looked at potentially adding a third level to that wing, which can be done. We did on an A.R. Shirley project, adding a level to an existing structure. It requires a lot of reinforcement of existing structure, including foundations. We think it's more economical to demo that part and to build a new 3-story pod basically on this corner. So this is shown with science. So it could be a primarily STEM wing with a pod type organization like ones I showed earlier. Also, if you had kept the existing structure here, when you overlay the new piece, it creates such a narrow channel that we were not getting anything close to what we could get if we build this section new and splay this leg out. And so we've proceeded with that. It's again in alignment with the space budget that we had put out there for PDP. At the lower level, you descend down into the dining commons, and this outdoor commons is fronted with a large glass wall, which if we can deconstruct the sort of outline of the media to be also very glassy, we can get lots of light coming in to the media center from below. And also at the upper level, there could be a piece that's sort of a mezzanine and then a stair going down, and very open and very sort of connected as a hub. On the left side, again, lower auditorium and music suite right behind it. There could be a challenge with the circulation here, cutting through what is typically a back of house area, but I think there's a lot of room to maneuver in terms of pushing the pieces around and getting better flow from dining over the field house, which does have also a change of level. There's a few stairs there, which we would reintegrate with a ramp of some kind in front of the phys ed wing. Going up to the 3rd floor. So the stairwell that is drawn here drives all the way up to the roof and connects a 3rd level, which is sort of this wrapper that again hugs around that outdoor common space, overlooks the field, the existing Beasley Field, an oval, and has 2 roof terrace elements. So the building is stepping down in that direction. You can have outdoor lab space and classrooms up there. It could be very productive space, as well as a beautiful space that really kind of grounds the project to its exterior. Again, the image on the right is very reminiscent of where we kind of started from the interview. And there's a lot of potential there. We've done away with the idea of a plinth in this option. We feel like letting the transition happen within the building down to an outdoor ground level that meets the field is very appropriate and very cost effective, I would say. On the left, again, the view off of Farm Street, we're creating a more generous sort of plaza feature out in front, and a definite sort of entry element or pavilion that when entered, I think could be quite brilliant actually when you walk in and descend through the building as if it's an interior landscape and totally connected to all the pieces. So that is where we are with the ad reno scheme. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments? Okay.
Joe, I have one comment on procedure. When is the school leadership team going to be able to see these?
Until Wednesday.
Is that the plan, or is there another meeting that they're going to see these in? Because for us to even go into the next meeting without getting their feedback, I think is not great. I'd like to hear what their comments are.
So would I.
Yeah, we were just discussing that amongst ourselves. I think we would have done that this week if not for discussing the PDP comments, Chip. But we do have a leadership meeting scheduled for Wednesday. And we really need to get Doug and Amy's input on this.
Can we make sure then during that meeting, or even if it's another meeting scheduled at some point, that we get the athletic director, the theater director, more than just the leadership group, right? They're not included in that leadership group, right?
Correct.
Not typically.
No,
Right.
so if we can get the people that, the heads of departments or whatever, to see this before our next meeting so that we get their feedback as well, I think it's critical.
Yep.
So even if it needs to be a separate meeting outside of the leadership to pack in, I think they need to weigh in on adjacencies and thoughts and all of that.
We agree
Lynn,
with
what's
you.
your thoughts how to make that happen?
Yes, I think we need to try to set up a separate meeting from the leadership group to get that done. Because I know there's several things that we need to bring to the leadership meeting on Wednesday. Also, I know that Martine would like to get with the Wakefield Environmental Sustainability Committee, if possible, if they have a meeting coming up, or if they would like to meet with her separately, like schedule a meeting. We'd like to have that happen. And then I think we also want to set up a meeting with DPW, the town engineer, and the facilities director to get some more directive feedback on the MEP systems. And we've got a lot that we have to get through over this next month. And I think it's going to be a very meetings heavy month. But if we could get those meetings set up right away, that'd be great. And I just want to confirm, we are going to have the March 10th PBC SBC meeting, but I wanted to, there was a lot of talk about the public forum. And I think we settled on March 17th as a date for that. Is that correct, Joe?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do we want to meet as the PBC before or after that? Because as I said, there's a lot that we have to get through this month. Or do we want to?
I would have it on a different, the public forum on a different night.
Okay.
I thought
Yeah.
what was
You
the
don't know how many
15th?
people are gonna show up. You could have 4 people, you could have 40.
Was the 15th a school committee meeting? Is that the issue?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't remember. Okay.
And do we want to present to the school committee? I think they have a meeting the 15th and the
It was
29th.
scheduled, yes. The Wakefield and SMMA was scheduled to present to the school committee on the 15th.
Okay. All right, so the public forum will set up for the 17th. Next Thursday night, we'll have a PB. I think that we probably need to add a PBC meeting for the 24th then. I think we had skipped we went from the 10th to the 31st for PBC meetings, but I think we should schedule one for the 24th.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
agree. Yeah. And we may schedule something else just in case, depending upon next week too, and all.
Yeah.
Any other things. We're gonna have to be very fluid with these meetings, people.
I mean, the other thing I would ask, and I know it's somewhat personal, but if we can not do meetings at 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, but more like 3 and 4 in the afternoon for some of these group meetings like the MEPs, and I think we might, you know, I know it's asking teachers to do something after school, but you know, I'd love to hear their feedback. And I just know personally for a lot of us in this group, we're working during the day. So it might be easier for us to join at a 3 or 4 in the afternoon than 9 or 10 in the morning,
Okay.
if it's possible.
All right. Robin, are you still with us? Can you help us facilitate a meeting with the Environmental Sustainability Committee?
Yes, I can ask our chairwoman to get an agenda. Our next meeting is the 24th, Thursday.
Okay.
So, I don't know
Helen,
what
do
that
we
means for
need
you
that
guys, but-
meeting sooner than that?
Yeah, ideally, we'd love to interface with the Sustainability Committee before the public forum. Just so we're, you know, we'd love to come together before then, if at all possible, or a subgroup, perhaps, Robin. We're willing to be flexible.
What, Lynn, maybe we should move the public forum then.
Why don't we move the public forum to the 24th? Well, that.
When are we,
Second.
when do we have to have the decisions made for MEPs, and what's the date for
I
that?
think we would want to start narrowing those down to the systems that we're going to analyze within the next couple of weeks. If
So at that point, then you need the Sustainability Committee next week sometime, if they want input, which we know they do. So unfortunately, you know, they're gonna have to.
Robin, could you ask the chairperson to see if you could meet on an earlier time period so that you can have that discussion with the SMMA people, and just let us know if that's possible, okay?
Sure, I'll reach out to Myra.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a lot to nail down here, so I'll try to update the schedule. I know when I was looking at it and I included the schedule in the packet, I realized it really needed some revision and needed to pinpoint some of these meetings, so.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that, Lynn.
Okay,
All right.
that's it.
Does anybody have anything else? Thank you all very much. And next week, for the other purposes, for the public safety building, we go before the planning board and the zoning board of appeals on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday and Wednesday of next week as well. So it's going to be a busy month. So thank you very much for your time and effort.
So Lynn, our next meeting is here next Thursday? For the
Yes,
full
March 10th.
Yep.
And that will be reviewing site, as Brian
Right.
mentioned.
Yes, and
Perfect.
any further discussion, I think, on design alternatives.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have the leadership
We'll
groups
have
input
input.
by then. Yeah.
Right.
And then that bigger group of the school. Good. Thank you.
All right.
All
And
right.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Everybody click on leave.